The views and opinions provided on this show are for informational purposes only and should not be misinterpreted as an offer to buy or sell any securities or to make or consider any investment or course of action. For more information, please go to passiveinvestorshow.com.
Are you a busy professional looking to diversify your portfolio? Ever wanted to passively invest in real estate but don't know where to start? John Fortes provides you with a guide to passively invest in real estate. This is the Passive Investor Show.
And now, the Passive Investor Show. Here's your host, John Fortes.
Welcome, PI listeners, to the Passive Investor Show. I'm the Passive Investor Consultant, John Fortes, your host of the only ranked podcast for passive investors in multifamily syndications. Our goal and purpose of the show is to be a resource to passive investors and help them master their investments in real estate funds. This episode marks 100 episodes for the Passive Investor Show. I plan to release a interviewed podcast that I had with someone, but I'm glad I number my podcast because it showed up as 100 episodes. So I kind of pivoted and will delay that release on that interview because I wanted to celebrate, as we do on this show, 100. I wanted to celebrate as we do small victories. First and foremost, thank you to the PI listeners for the support. Since the launch of the podcast, I've received great support and feedback. We are coming up on 1 year since the launch of the podcast. The support has been great and amazing, and at times overwhelming for me. Also, thank you for making this show the only ranked podcast on iTunes for passive investing. It means a lot to me. This is a true passive investing audio experience that has a true focus of the limited partner experience in real estate investing. Now, another thing that I wanted to tie into this podcast episode was there's different questions that I get from industry colleagues exploring the idea of starting a podcast. And I encourage you to start yours and do so, but also commit to doing it for a year. Don't do it for 2 weeks, 2 months. Just do it for a year. And commit to it. Consistency is key. One of the questions is it worth doing a podcast? It depends on what you are trying to achieve. I enjoy helping people. I'm a true networker. In fact, if I have investor calls and they ask me specific questions, I'm not scared to recommend other syndicators. I'm a networker it's my natural ability. I am true to that. I honor that. It's been working for me my whole life, and I'm not scared of losing business, clientele, investors, or anything. I'm confident in myself and my ability. So I preach that to my kids, and it means a lot to me that I preach it to myself. It took me a long time to get to that place as a teenager, so I had to really hone in on that. I love learning more about the people that invest. So I'm a systems and process guy. I have a background in IT. So this is another reason why I enjoy doing a podcast, because it connects me with sponsors that truly I've already met in the past. I get to bring them on the show. I've met them at conferences. I've met them at meetups. I've met them wherever you go to network. I've gone there and I've made relationships. I've built on them and gotten them to come on my show and built up those relationships even more. But also, I love learning what they do in their systems and processes. So it's more of sharing those philosophies through the process of an passive investor. So this is a multifamily syndication focused show, but we focus on the passive investor experience. And as many of you guys know, I came to this conclusion of starting a podcast while out on a run. I was out on a run, and a bunch of industry friends kept pushing me to start a podcast. I just didn't want to start a regular real estate podcast. So the bright idea came to me while I was 3 miles away from the house, and I couldn't wait to get back home to write the idea down of creating a podcast that would focus strictly on the passive investing experience. That was just the beginning of it. Other reasons why is, a lot of you also know, is I wanted to leave something for my kids to be able to hear my voice when, obviously, it's a little morbid, but when I'm not here anymore. But it's incentive to push me to create something, to be consistent. That helps me be consistent. And talking to other operators on their systems and processes intrigues me. So having basically the seesaw where my kids in the future get to hear this long after I'm gone, and possibly their kids. And I'm really, really curious by nature to learn about what people are doing in their operational aspect of the business that help passive investors. So that's my reasoning for doing it. That's kind of my why. So is it worth doing a podcast? Coming out of that, I don't focus on the numbers. I focus on what I have. So I have a pool of investors, and I push it out to them, and they share it to their friends, and they share it to their friends, and they share. It just goes that way. It just kind of a never-ending cascading effect. But I'm not sitting there focusing on growing it externally. I'm growing it internally. That's my process. So it's worth it to me. It's fun, but also allows me to share a message that hasn't been out there in the industry. So if you can find your purpose, your why, and don't do it just specifically for a specific reason, do it because you find that the industry lacks something and you want to solve that problem. Do it that way, and it will genuinely become yours, and you will be the expert in that field, and you will be the one that they reach out to say, hey, I noticed you focus on passive investors. Can you come and talk to us on this panel about passive investors? What's the things that you see most common with passive investors? And I get to go up there and voice those, what I've learned by creating this show. I have a year of content to just go back on and devour. So that's what it's allowed me to do, and that's what it will allow you to do if you focus on something that isn't there. Hey, real estate investors. Did you know that you can invest in real estate with your 401k or IRA? Through Newview Trust Company, you don't have to worry about the volatile stock market to make smart money moves. Newview has a free self-directed IRA guide you can get right now. That's right, PI listeners. I said right now. Go to newviewtrust.com to get your hands on it and learn more. Since their founding, Newview Trust has strived to provide clients with the broadest possible choices in their IRAs. So head to newviewtrust.com to download their free guide that could help you invest your retirement account in real estate and much more. That's NUVIEW trust.com. newviewtrust.com. The more you know, the more we grow. Happy investing. Another question is, what has the podcast allowed me to do? I think I just touched on it a little bit, but also here's a little bit more of a deep dive into that. It's allowed me to implement systems and processes to scale my business. For instance, before starting the podcast, I was on a lot of demo calls in regards to investor portals. I wanted to find the right fit for me and my investors, but I knew I liked the few and I had to make a decision on which one to go with. So I kind of let it just linger out there. I started the podcast. I started asking the questions. What kind of systems and process do you implement that help passive investors? And a lot of them come and say investor portals. And that's another level up moment for syndicators, right? When they take on a portal, they're leveling up. So I needed to make a decision on which one, and being able to have those conversations and quickly asking maybe one or two questions in regards to the investor portal when the podcast recorded session is over allowed me to gain more insight into which one I was looking for, because they've pointed out to me certain aspects of maybe things that I wasn't considering in the past. And then I created my list, what you would say, what I wanted in the investor portal. And I made a decision. So having those conversations on the podcast helped me really navigate those waters of selecting the right investor portal for me. Also, it has allowed me to build upon the relationships with other sponsors. I mentioned that earlier, right? I met them at networking functions and I was able to just expand on those relationships. It's helped me understand which communication methods work best. What kind of methods are they using for more email marketing open rates with campaign emails? Creating onboarding process for passive investors, my 3-step philosophy of coming through the investor portal. If not, go to johnfortes.com and you can see it there. And how to speak to passive investors. I knew how to speak to passive investors. It's just now I've really been able to just fine tune those messages in more engaging conversations. And truthfully, it's become a school of passive investing 101 for me. It's awesome. The things I've learned, the things I've been able to share with my investors, the things I've been able to implement into my business, it's really, really helped me scale efficiently. And those are the two biggest questions. So if you're going to start a podcast, do it with purpose. Don't do it with intent of receiving something, because you'll only be chasing a carrot on a stick out to oblivion. You won't have any direction. What's next for the Passive Investors Show? Well, we have more interviews with high-level operators. I'm exploring authors to come onto the show that focus on mindset, psychology, and demographic experts. Also looking to bring on other real estate experts that partner with investors in other real estate aspects of the business, such as self-storage, mobile home parks. I've had a few on, but I want to get a little bit more. I know that this is a focus of strictly multifamily, but I'm truly curious of other ways to manage operations in other fields in focus. I'm seeking to bring in hedge fund managers to dive into the limited partners that they work with and what kind of systems and processes they are operating with. It's always good to learn more. Like I said, I want to learn about other fields in focus, how they're doing it, how are they communicating with passive investors. I want more examples of passive investing experience through our Investor 101 series. The quick hitters aren't going anywhere. And I want more questions from the PI listeners. I've received a ton. I love them, and I try to answer them. I love this part of the show because in the past, I was able to pull from what I came across as questions that I received from passive investors from my one-on-one conversations. Receiving the PI listeners' questions has also helped me groom some episodes, because it might be a question that I have yet to have come across as I deal with passive investors. So it's just it helps me because I get to add it to my FAQ questions log that I created for myself. I might not know the answer immediately, but guess what? I don't have all the answers. But a guest might have dealt with that experience. A guest might have gone through that experience. A guest might have knowledge of that experience from someone else that they've spoken to. And I get to catalog that and update my personal FAQ guide. And then if you ever have any guest recommendations, we're always looking for guests that fit our qualifications. And our only qualification is they have to work with passive investors. So if they're a sponsor, we'd love to have them on the show. We'd love to hear from them. And the focus is continuing to provide the passive investing audio experience to you, the PI listeners. I want to thank you again. This has been amazing, this podcast. I really feel grateful that I get to do this. I get to provide this outlet for passive investors. I'm grateful for being the only ranked passive investor show. I'm grateful for the PI listeners. It's been quite a ride. We're coming up on 1 year in August. And I truly appreciate you guys and thank you for the support. It wouldn't be possible without you guys. And I really thank you for that. PI listeners, thank you for listening. As always, we hope this was the best resource for your investment strategy, but also the best use of your time. As much as it pains us to leave you, but you know what time it is. Time to go put this into practice. Till the next time we meet. Happy investing. PI listeners, I'm grateful for your time and I appreciate you for listening. It would mean the world to me if you went to iTunes and left a rating and written review. Let me know how you feel about the show. It really makes a big difference with getting the podcast out there. Don't forget about our Facebook group, where all of our guests are members of. I'll be there to answer any of your questions, or even questions you might have for future guests. Subscribe so you can get the latest episodes and our fan favorite quick hitters. Finally, I want to keep you updated, so head over to johnfortes.com and sign up for the newsletter. If you're interested in partnering with me, sign up on the contact page so you can talk to me directly. I look forward to connecting with you. Happy investing.